light on. Is there anybody here tonight who would consider buying a rowboat to put on the Salton Creek? Nobody? Okay. There's only 7 slides on this carousel here because there was a boathouse on the Salton Creek. And there's the boathouse. And that was on the side that the railroad station was on, and a little bit above the railroad station. And actually, that was Hellertown's first B&B. And I don't mean bed and breakfast either. It was a boathouse and beer. That's what it was. Because the young chaps down south in the Hellertown, they built this. And you can see there's about 6 barrels of beer on the back of that rowboat. And it must be empty because if they were full, the boat would be down at the bottom of the creek. Here they are again, Salton Creek, boathouse. And there's a sign that was posted from the sign company that gives the boathouse, don't mess with the boathouse. All persons will be punished by the law. That's a sign that I got at the flea market. Roast beef supper. May 1st, 1926. Look at the very bottom line, the price of the supper. 35 cents for a roast beef supper. That is the very first yearbook of Hellertown High School, 1933. And you can see it, it's not called the, what's it today? The reflector, right. It's called Reminiscence. But then the very next year, there's their first reflector in 1934. Okay, I got this one off. As far as the boathouse is concerned, yes.
Where was that located?
It was north of the railroad station. Yeah. The boathouse disappeared one night because either one or several of the wives came down and burned it down to the ground. That's the boathouse. From then on, the husbands were home a little more often. I'm going to show some early business places that existed in town. And this one here was down where the fountain is today. And this was David Prosser before Weissel moved into his harness shop. And you can see he had tobacco and souvenirs and food lots and other things as well. Remember that, buddy?
That was before my time.
This stands where the grass is on the south side of the town hall today. And at this time, the gentleman standing there was the postmaster. And that was one of Hellertown's early post offices at that spot. And here's the same building, and they have the RFD, the Rural Free Delivery wagons out front. This Calvin Bergstresser, he did a lot of photography around town and made them into postcards. And this is the post office again, and this is down at the corner of Main and Salton. It would be around where Curves would be located today, and the hair salon right at that section. And down in the corner here, you could go down steps there, and there was a plumber down in that area here. His name was Harvey, H-A-R-W-I, who was the postmaster at that time. This was down in the 100 block of Hellertown, and it was a lumber yard. I don't recall, or I don't think I even have the name of the individual. It was down south end of town. This is Bame, who was the milkman, and he lived out in North Saucon Township, down near Saucon Park. And I have to laugh every time I see this picture, because I think the horse needs a couple gallons of milk. This was Union Iron Works, and this was at the corner of Main and Walnut. It would be the corner where they, or Rite Aid would be. And this is Weisel's granite yard. It was only in Hellertown about 2 or 3 years, around 1902 and 1903. And then he moved the granite yard up to Riversville. I think the reason for moving was because the people in Hellertown and Lower Saucon were so healthy, they didn't die off fast enough to have a tombstone they make around. The building with the roof on the top and the tree coming out in the middle there was Nicholas's department store in Hellertown. Building down there is the Oddfellows Hall in that section down in there. Trolley car tracks are in, Main Street is dirt, and so this was taken before 1925. Daisy Ribbon, I have no idea when the photograph was taken. You can tell by the ladies with the long skirts on there, it was quite a while back. This was a Hess, where that old Union Iron Works was, I just showed you before, the same building. And the Hess people, they made shutters for windows and doors for houses and all kinds of wooden products for the building trades. That's a corner of Main and Walnut. AM Light in harness shop. And this would be down in either the 100 or the 200 block of South Main Street. In the back of the building, in that section back in there, is where the first Valley Works for soda was in Hellertown. A man from Ohio came in and started it, and then later on my mother's uncle, Ed Ruth, took over the Valley Works. And notice how everybody's out, because when the photographer came, that was a big event back in those days. Real big event. The little girls was sitting there on the steps. This is Clinty Bergstresser. Back in the old days, you know, when somebody passed on, you generally had to do it in the house. And so what Clinty had was a store where he sold furniture. And there's some chairs visible. They're not too visible right now tonight. But he has some chairs in the window there. And the undertaker before him was Francis Ryman, and he did the same thing. He made items out of wood as well. Mr. Templeton was from Hightstown, New Jersey, and he sold rugs to people. He had a regular book with all the flaps in there like that. And I remember as a young boy going down there with my mother and buying a rug from the funeral director, Clarence Templeton. This is one of Clinty Bergstresser's bills for a funeral. The casket cost $16. The slippers cost $1. The stockings cost 50 cents. The hearse cost $5. The attendants cost $3. And making the grave cost $3.50. So the entire funeral cost $29. Big difference from today. Really big difference. And you can see the date at the top, June 7, 1904. This building in the back would be KNBT, what do you call that? Bank, that's a bank today, and whatever. But there was a bakery in that building at one time. And this is the baker's wagon here in front. This is Crossroads, Main Street and High Street at the Crossroads. And at this time, it was owned by Sally and Stuart Bain. And remember last week I put some slide on about Saucon Crossroads soccer team and baseball team? That building in the back, right there, is where their headquarters is. That building still stands today, but it's hard to see it on account of the growth that's in the front. And would you like to have that car there today? Now that's Sally and Stuart Bain, who had that store for a while. And every time I show this slide, Sally still has the same expression on her face. I don't know why, whether Stuart was in trouble, whether he was out to make that man or what. But Sally looks a little down in the dumps. That's Sucker Valley Trust Company, which is now the Body Works. My wife won't let me go there. Crossroads Drug Store, and this is after 1925 because Bay Street was paved. And in this area, you went down the steps, and you went into the very first bowling alley in Hellertown. Brett Rhodes showed me a 10-pin that he had found down in the bottom, but when he had the store along with Buddy. This is the corner of Water Street and Main Street, and that's old John Beaver sitting out in his rocking chair, and he lived there, and grocery store was on the corner. And in the back of that grocery store was the first telephone exchange in Hellertown. When you had to ring something up and get the operator who plugged you into where you wanted to talk. And see the kind of street lights they had? Nothing more than a tin plate with a bulb in the bottom. It's the kind we used to shoot out when we were kids. This is Winona's store, which is the back of Nebraska's at the north end of town. Today there's a doctor in this building. After Eddie Zabisky used to get his cigars when he was in high school. I remember last time I told you about the Hellertown Shoe Manufacturing Company and how it started off down in the engine house at the Thomas Iron. And then it burned on, and there were a lot of burned shoes laying all around here. Well, this is the stock certificate of the Hellertown Shoe Manufacturing Company. And when the house for the engine burned down, and they went up where Greasy is today and put that building up. And it says Victor J. Wagner as one of the stockholders of the Hellertown Shoe Manufacturing Company. That's a jangle down the bottom, isn't it? Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah. Titus Rook, who had a dry goods store. In that business district down around where Carson Farm were only on the other side of the street. I don't know what's in there now.
Cyber.
Pardon?
Cyber restaurant.
Oh, okay, good. And Titus was a representative in Harrisburg for a number of years because he was the district Democratic chairman for the county. This is the inside of Titus' store. And in the back room here was the telephone exchange again later on for Hellertown. Brothers Sunoco gas station. I lived only a block away from there when I was growing up. Until I was 27, I lived back in there. And Charlie and Harry, good friends. I used to come down and sit along the curb there at that spot, not pump gas in the cars and check their batteries. And every time at Christmas time and Easter time, Charlie and Harry always had a nice big chocolate bunny for me, or a chocolate Santa Claus that they gave to me. And you see the motorcycle over there? That was Joe Belch's motorcycle. Joe was quite a character as a Hellertown policeman, from what I hear. I hope I'm not offending anybody. This is Geyer's, which is down across from Town Hall today. And you can't read the sign there from here, but it says Atlantic Gas puts pep in your car. And he also sold Plymouths. And my dad bought a Plymouth from him one day. And then a couple days later, he went to Kutztown for my mother's class reunion, and some drunk smashed into the car. And my mother said, "Thank God we have insurance." And my father said, "I didn't get it yet."
Is that where Murray Motors is?
That's where Murray Motors is. That's spot there. The building there is the pizza place. Right in there. Okay. And that also was a stable for the Park Hotel, that building. Before it became Geyer's Motor Garage. This garage was run by Clayton Judd. And it was right behind St. Paul's Church, down near Town Hall. And it's funny because in the front of St. Paul's Church was where the first Hellertown grade school was, in the front yard. And then the backyard for many years was a garage where we carried automobiles. My granddad used to take his car down there, down to there. And there's Clayton Judd again at his garage. This is Bob's place, Bob Rickert, that worked on the Hellertown, which for a long time was Butch Chevrolet. And also Gus Barber, I forget his last name. I used to get my hair cut there once in a while. He was in that lower section for a while, cutting hair. I think it was really rich or something like that. Lurch Dairy. When I was in first grade, that was our big field trip. A trip down to Lurch Dairy from the Reinhardt School. We didn't have a bus either. And behind it, in this section back in here where the railroad was where they had the hook where they could pick up a mailbag on the run while stopping and throwing another one out onto the swamp that was behind Lurch Dairy.
Where was that located?
Pardon?
Where was that located?
That was located on Front Street and Water.
It was Brookfield Dairy, then ripped down.
There we go,
There
Brookfield
it is.
Dairy.
Yep.
And you can see he had quite a number of vehicles there. Mr. Kemp had Brookfield Dairy. Remember those famous bottles they had with the baby face on the front like that? They're collector's items today. At the time this picture was taken, this was called the Pennsylvania Hotel. Today, Mr. Rodriguez, is it? Lake has, what's it called? A tavern house, right. Hellertown's first election for their very first borough Burgess was held in this building. And Thomas R. Laubach beat Peter Harris out by one single vote. 60 to 59 was the count, one vote. I like that. It's a post field that kerosene lantern on it as caution for the automobiles. That's pretty rusty. Crossroads Hotel. It really hasn't changed that much today, no. I was told years ago that the Crossroads Hotel was a wooden structure that faced High Street rather than Main. I haven't seen any pictures of that, but even Ray Beatty said that this was the case as far as the Crossroads Hotel was concerned.
I got a picture.
Now there's the Crossroads Hotel again. Can anybody here tell me what that is? Nope, not a water trough. I guess that's a scale for weighing things. You know, they have the bar across there and so forth. And they had a regular scale there. A farmer would bring his wagon load of hay in there and park it there and have it weigh. Now that, I lived only a block and a half away from there, and I was born in 31, and I don't remember that being there then, so this is before 1930s. Now I'm an oldies here, 31. Park Hotel. Park
Eagle.
Hotel. Oh, I'm sorry, Eagle Hotel. I'm sorry, the Eagle Hotel.
Great part.
This is where the fire company was started on the inside of this. They had their first meeting there on the inside of the Park Hotel. At that time, it was called the Cottage Hotel. We had a janitor at Reinhardt School who used to come down there every day after his duties were done at the school. And one day, Louis Margot, he closed and locked the front door and pulled the shade down over here. He couldn't get in for his afternoon cap. And so he went down to Tavern House. He never came back to the Eagle Hotel for another drink.
Where was that located?
Great Park.
Yeah, today it's Braveheart Restaurant, Braveheart Bar and Grill. I'm glad you're helping me out here. This is the Park Hotel, and that's the ice wagon that's backed up there. And you can't see it too well, but there's little girls right in there peeking out behind the trees, and they're Harvey Myers' daughters. Look at this Park Hotel now. I have 1, 2, 3 stories, and then a slanted roof on the top. Okay? Here's the same hotel, and it's all decorated for some sort of national holiday or whatever. And this man over here with the bag on his shoulder there, he was the peanut man. And whenever they had a parade in Hellertown, he would walk up and down Main Street selling peanuts to the crowd. And that's Harvey Myers and his wife, who were the owners of the hotel. And Harvey Myers also had a garage on Water Street, just around the corner from this hotel, where he sold Ford automobiles. And it was the Hellertown printery, where the Hellertown Herald was printed. John Deemer stored trucks in there for a while, and now there's a little small mini mall at that spot. Now look at the Park Hotel now. See that? How many stories? And the roof is entirely flat. So when they remodeled it, they really made a big change. In the back there, they had a cellar there that was water in it because there was a lot of water around this area. They had fish in there. And the other side of the hotel, where they drilled for water, the water gushed up 5 feet off the ground. That's the kind of pressure they had there. And behind that was where the Hellertown Sportsman's Club had their fish ponds for stocking and salty creek.
They also put shows on the top of that.
Pardon?
They also had shows on the top of the Park Hotel.
They had what?
Shows.
Oh, shows.
Yeah.
Did they? Were you there, Stanley?
Yes, I was.
Were the girls there, Stanley?
I don't remember it.
He doesn't
I
remember.
was just a young man.
You were just a young lad. You should have been there then.
Well, the storm came up and then that ended the show. parked it where they parked the horses.
Oh, yeah.
My pop had a 1927 Dodge.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, and behind that hotel, we used to have auctions for horses from the west and also cattle as well. There's the lady Barber in Hellertown, Sarah Keeley. Did you know her too, Stanley? You gotta be careful, Stanley. I tried to get the date off that calendar with the magnifier on the camera, but I couldn't get it off. That would be, she had her barber shop down around where Yeager's drugstore is.
Didn't she have a sister too?
Yes, she did. She had a sister. Now you do the sister too.
Yeah.
Stanley gets around.
Oh, I'm almost 90 years old.
Burger cups. Weren't those strawberry milkshakes delicious at the cup? Boy, they were good. This would be across the street from here where sailors have their meetings. It was put up in the late 30s. When President Roosevelt died, Harry Crossroads gave me a whole pack of newspapers with great big headlines on. And who wants to sell these? I'll sell them. When I came up to the cup, I hollered, extra, extra, Roosevelt dead, you know. People came, and they came out of the movies, and I sold all my papers for a nickel, and they did me a dime, so I had money in my pocket, besides some of the newspapers as well.
I was one of his guards.
What?
The plane was in Washington, D.C.
Uh-huh.
I was in the military police.
Oh, I thought maybe you had Louis' sister here.
What was the year that they took that down?
I don't know what year they took it down, so I really don't.
They were supposed to have about 12 of them in the Lehigh Valley.
Pardon?
There was about 12 of those cups in the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah. And they had the most delicious strawberry milkshakes you've ever tasted. Was it? Yeah, late 30s they brought it down. This is one of my favorite photographs too. Yeah, the old-fashioned hearse in front of what's now the town hall. And the driver, the teamster, I don't know who he is. It's not Pliny Birchmesser. Because I've showed this picture, I have an 8x10 of this at home. And I showed a number of people, and they said, no, that's not Pliny. It may have been Francis Ryman, who was an undertaker before Pliny. And the word undertaker is a word that has kind of died out. Now they're funeral directors. So don't call Heintzelman a funeral undertaker. This is Hellertown's first schoolhouse. It was built in 1839, and I think that steeple on this thing here was a church because in 1870 it became a church. And I think by 1839 when it was built, photography didn't take a picture of that as a schoolhouse. And that was St. Paul's, that's in the front of St. Paul's Church today. That would have been Carson's hardware store over there on the side. The church bought it in 1870, and it was torn down in 1882. This is the second schoolhouse that was built in Hellertown on Northampton Street, right on the same spot where the Reinhardt School is. And that was put up in 1870, and they had 4 classrooms in there with 4 teachers. Miss Mary Hess was one, and Mr. Reinhardt was another one of the teachers in that building. There you can see this is Mary Hess over here, and Miss Abel over here, and Mr. Reinhardt over in this section here. Hellertown's first high school. Main and Pine Street. And Pine Street, you don't hear too much of because it's, I don't even think it's a through street. It's south of the town. There was a real estate in there recently. But now, there's a lady in there who does, who sells supplies for scrapbooking and making your own cards. Right. In the window, there's a display there like that. First high school graduated 3 in their first graduating class. 3 people. And that was 1896 when they had their first graduating class with 3 people in it.
Was that Margaret Williams? This topic?
No, she graduated in 1990. I like this picture too because it shows the kids are all dressed up in their Sunday dress, right? The kind they wear to go to church. So, beautiful girls' dresses in the back. The boys with their knickers on, or people call them. I hated wearing knickers when I was. The elastic would stretch and they'd be down on your ankles, and the long socks would be covered with shoes. Oh, I hated those. This is that was an art school, but here at the bottom you see high school. And from 1910, then it was Hellertown's elementary and high school. From 1910 until 1920. And then in 1920, the Wolf School on High Street became the new high school. This was one of the graduating classes, 1911. You see the board. These boards were made by every graduating class that came through for many, many years. And they always had HHS on it, and they always had the year on over here. This only 4 girls in the whole, and only 1 boy in the graduating class. That's the stage inside the Reinhardt School building. That's a proposed new high school that they were going to build. But they never built it like that. Because here you see the door is only one in the central part, whereas the high school had a door over here and a door over there. So they didn't go by this proposal by the architect. And there's the high school as we knew it. This is the Wolf School. And I'd like to know if you see anything odd about that Wolf School there. I didn't see it for a little while. It took me a long time to see what's funny about that Wolf School. Nobody, it's only half there. Here's your first grade room here. Where's the third grade windows? And there's that indenture where you went in the doors on the side, in the middle, when it was full as Wolf School. So when the Wolf School was built, only the front part was first built, and the second part was added on later. And it took me a little while to realize that. When I had possession of that, to take a picture of it, a slide of it. Can you see that? Right? I'll only half built. This is Girls Glee Club when I was on high school. Martha McLean, Martha Riggle. Right. Mrs. Parsons, right in here. May Collard on the end. May Brown. Evelyn Strawn over here. Perhaps Hufford, Mrs. Hufford, who had the potato farm. Oh, and Mrs. Dick Rauscher, this spot right in here. And I can't pick on any of you. I don't have a card. This is a picture I love. Hellertown High School, 23 and 24, the girls' basketball team. Elaine, I have a card in there as to who they were. In the box. Oh, no, that's not the one. Lead a kick line from the end over here. Great bowler. And this is a Bevo, and that's a crosser. So I thought I had the card with all their names on it. No, that's okay. It's okay. Oh, they played their basketball games in the barn that was down where Town Hall is today when it was the hotel. And Mr. Hoppus used to take light bulbs along because they'd shoot the ball up in the air and it would knock one of the lights out. So they had to stop the game and put a light bulb in.
Oh, man.
This is one of my favorite pictures too. The way the I'm gonna have them in there somewhere. Those TVs. I want them down.
Hey, Stanley, do you know any of them? Touche.
One of those is Mrs. John Barker. And I think that's the one there. And I think that one there, I know her and I can't think of the name. I thought I worked out. I just always like the way the photographer has them seated and poised for that picture. Huh? Yeah, okay. Put it on. Dorothy Huber on the left. Huh? Oh, okay. Back one. Yeah, there we go. Put it on there. Dorothy Huber on the left in the back. Ruth Wagner, Josephine Prosser, and Emmeline Buss, the teacher. And then in the front, Anna Hagee, Alice Spigo, and Leela Kickline. I'm sure some of those faces are remembered by people. This one here? Oh, yeah. On this one, Verna Kaler, who was Mrs. Warren Hefter, Elizabeth Light, who became Mrs. Howard Hess, and Pearl Dimmick, who became Mrs. John Barker, and Robert Hoppus as the principal. Really? He was a great man. He was my next door neighbor. I think that's how I got my job teaching. Mr. Operator. Mr. Operator spent 41 years in education. And when I first started teaching, he was my principal. And I loved him as principal. He backed his teachers up, and he was just a very kind man. One day I gave a test, a history test, and one of the kids in the class, one of the boys, he had the most horrible spelling for the answers, but you could tell by the phonics that he knew what the answer was. I took 5 points off for his spelling. And his father came down to Mr. Operator's office. And Mr. Operator told me later on, I left him throw all of his stones. And then when he was done, I said to him, I used to do the same thing. And that was the end of the conversation. Sabo and McPherson were decided right here. This must have been taken at some kind of convention. I don't know that trouble at all. Jack was my principal for a while, and Zabel was my principal for a while too. I was very fortunate to have a good principal, what I thought. Hellertown Public School Band. I don't have a card for them, they do so many games on it. Gladys Ward on the end, Mr. Ward Kessel, who went around town teaching people. I think that's Mikey and Nicky right there. And Hazel Dimmick is in the back there somewhere. And this little guy was Bobby McKibben, who my grandmother raised, and he was a real hellion in town. And that I think is Scotty Wagner there in the center. You can see by the height of these and the ones in the back that it was elementary school and high school as well in the band. Okay, H. Stanley Weichel, taught math. He's in back. And then Norm Pfister, who was English and science. And he married, his wife was from Sturgis Pretzel Factory. And then James Turner Jones, who taught business and bookkeeping. Paul Weaver, who taught music. And Donald Frenchman, who taught civics and math. That was the faculty basketball team, 1939. Jake later quit there because he didn't get a raise. And he and Lloyd Hand didn't get a raise until they went somewhere else in that career. But yeah, Hand went, where Jake went to the Steel, Hand went down Palisades. Right, There's your first high, volume 1, number, is that a 3 there? Okay, good. Class of 1929. Now, if it was 29, I'm going to be at the Wolf School on High Street. Remember Rally Day or Field Day we used to have behind the high school? Lower Saucon had one there, as well as Hellertown, different times. Mr. Rillick, Miss Stenick, Paul Weaver, I think that's Mr. Operator, and looks like McPherson. Miss Log, who was a school nurse, and Kalamich, who had all the ribbons on from his wings. Stan Weichel back in there. And I think that's Ken Landis in the back, either there or down in here. There we go, a little bit better. Yeah, yeah, that's Ken Landis back in there, and that's Hand in there. That's Marcella over here. I'll bring her over here. I don't have that card for these stocks here. Tommy Ward on the end. Addison Moonhank's right in here. Hefner over here. Stubby Hurlock over here.
Eugene Rice in the middle.
Yeah, Eugene Rice. Not in down. I think that's Becker. Am I right, Eddie? Becker.
Wazalowski on the left.
And who?
Henry Wazalowski.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Henry Wazalowski right over this end. That's Super Root there. I think it is. Right. Chuck Brown. Great years of basketball when Chuck was a coach. This was taken in front of the Furnace School, which was one of the schools that was started by Lower Saucon, and then it was picked up by Hellertown when the Upper Edmonton was the next on. And behind that school was one of those fabricated schools as well. Eddie, I think that's Foxy Laubach there. The way it looks. And I think that's Andy Kovar, who had Andy's Diner. The guy over the left. spot there. Furnace school. Faculty again there at, what's it called? What's it called? Who was over there? What's up with you? Anyway, up there,
Who's that?
down in town,
Huh?
Mr. Riley, Mr. Hoppus, I don't know. In the second row there, that's Mrs. Hine with the black hat on. Yep, right over there. Margaret Miller, right, right in front of, no, black hat, right in front of Mrs. Miller. Okay. That's my first grade teacher, Mrs. Jacobs, her name was then. I became Mrs. Hyde later on. That's Mrs. Canals there. The guy is Spooky Taylor. That's who it is. R.N. Taylor, right. Called Spooky. That's a nickname, right? You're at before. Okay, Hellertown bands. I have no names because the picture's too old. No, I have no card for that. That was taken down by Pancho's Villa, or the Tavern House. It's an old picture. And it was on tin, too. I got it. That's why the word band is backwards. It's on the tin plate. It's on the tin plate. I used to tell my kids in school this was the Hellertown stagecoach. This was the Hellertown bandwagon. And they would go to different picnics in different towns around the area, and on different occasions they go to different areas on the bandwagon. A lot of the kids used to sit on the top of the roof there, and Sally, that's Herb Weissel as a young boy. Right there. The Hellertown band taken down by the Central Hotel. Or no, Park Hotel. I got my hotels on mixed up. Hellertown was the very first in town. There were a lot of hotels in there, right there. Edward H. Ackerman Drum and Bugle Corps, 1922. Herb Weissel's on the end. That's a Lux. What happened? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Herb Weissel, Benjamin Lux, Frank Widener, Albert Aki, Arthur Andrews, Charles Heft, Asher Kickline, George Coder, William Coder, George Deal, Martin Luss, Joe Hahn, and Elwood Ecker. And they were in the Halloween parade for the first time. They got a silver dollar, I think, in the whole thing. Pardon?
Look how they laid their
Yeah,
cards.
yeah, that's nice. They have them
That's
stacked up,
nice.
just like the rifles that they had in World War I.
That's right.
Right, thank you. Is that the end of it? Just flashlight up top. No, it's just a space. Yeah, Babe House. Built in 1747. And today it's George's Barber Shop. And when you walk down Main Street today, all you see is this section up in here of the first house. We had an itinerant minister back in those days, Reverend Babe, John Philip Babe. And when he used to come to Saucon, they used to light a fire on top of the big mountain back in there to let the settlers around the area know that the itinerant preacher lived in there on Sunday. He died in that house, the Reverend Babe, John Philip Babe. Now there's the same place as it looked when I was going to the Reinhardt School. And You can see the wood in the front is all gone, and the roof is sagging. There was a market there, right, a vegetable and fruit market for a while. And one of my first grade classmates lived in there at that time. Hellertown's first house. Bergie's Court, Bergie's the mall, everybody knows where that is. Right. I think I told you the story last week about when that truck went past, everybody saluted because it had general merchandise on the side.
Even with the iPhone, you only paid you 25 cents an hour.
Did you have any daughters, Stanley?
No, yeah, free slots.
Oh, okay. That's building the Hellertown Reservoir, back at Reservoir Park. And this picture would have been taken around 1899. The land was given to the borough by the Thomas Iron Company. Today it's still a reservoir, has a blue cover over the top. Wagner's Gristmill. And like it on my mother's side, traced my ancestry back to the Wagners who built this mill. This is a lighthouse off the coast of Florida. It's called Foley Rocks. And if you've ever noticed the street sign between Depot and Chester, there's an alley that goes in there. And it's called Foundry Alley. There was a foundry up on that Foundry Alley, and they got a contract to build some of the structural steel for this lighthouse off the coast of Florida. But they couldn't meet all the requirements for it, and so the government took the contract away from them and gave it to somebody else in, I think, Hoboken, New Jersey. Kenny Muschmetz, who many of you know, he was here last time. He was at the Coast Guard, and Kenny used to go to this very same lighthouse with supplies for the keeper. Lightsville Hotel. Everybody's getting some fresh air sitting on top of the roof. I have no idea whether it's a special occasion or not. They might have been free. I was never in there. I don't know until I missed. I think that's the deal, man. Priscilla, do you want to have a break before I put the next video on?
Yes.
Or should I keep on going?
Yes, so you'll have refreshments.
You want to have to make a break right now? Okay, here we go again. I'm going to start off with the Food Fire Company. Started in 1898. This is the church at the corner of Northampton and Saucon, Christ Union Church, and burned down in 1896. Lightning struck it, and nobody was in the church at the time, and so the fire got a good start on the inside, and they were not able to save it. Now, shortly after this fire here, there was a butcher on Main Street, I think it was around the 200 block. And he had a nice big barn behind his house by the alley. And that started on fire and burned down. And until the Hagee, his name was Hagee. By the time the Hagee fire was over, 4 structures had burned down. So it was a good conflagration that they had there. After the church and the Hagee fire was when the men got together to start the fire company. Because of those two fires, about 35 men met at the Cottage Hotel, which is now the Park Hotel, it's now the Graveyard. And they began to organize themselves. And okay, Milton Keller. Yeah, I think Milton Keller, I think his name was. He was the one who got up and became the leader of the group. And while all this was going on, the Spanish-American War was going on. And one of the big heroes, even bigger than Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders, was Admiral George Dewey. And at one of the meetings of the new fire company, Milton Keller got up and he said, I think we should name this the Dewey Fire Company. And it got its name in front of Admiral Dewey, who sailed into Manila Harbor and defeated the Spanish fleet that was there. When the Buffalo newspapers used to tell the public about the meetings of these men, before it became Dewey, they always referred to it as the Hellertown Hook and Ladder Company #1. That was all changed because of Admiral Dewey in that Spanish-American War. Well, their first piece of equipment was a second-hand hose cart that they got from Center Valley. But later on in 1899, they bought a brand new hose cart built in New York and shipped down by railroad to Hellertown. And the new cart and the fee for the railroad bought up to $183 for the hose cart. Try to get a fire truck for that. Okay, the firehouse, that's the hose cart that they got for $182. The building in the back, the firemen and probably some other helpers, they dug the foundation out by hand. And down in the bottom, there was a jailhouse down in the cellar there. They had the firehouse and I think the police department in here. And up on top they had a meeting house for town council. So it served as a multi-purpose building. It was built in the year 1900. Okay, that's it. There's the hose cart again. And somebody was telling me the other day that the hose cart now is at the fire company, the present fire company, in a memorial room that they have somewhere in that building. I haven't been there. Here they have the chemical. This is a chemical cart, this one here, and the hose cart being over here in this section. No siren at the top yet at all.
Is that building still up?
Yeah, it's Saucon Apartments now, on Saucon Street. Now, this is their first motorized truck that they had. And they really had to buy this because in 1918, the Northern and the Hellertown was the next on the Hellertown. And to pull a hose cart from Saucon Street to Cherry Lane would have been a rather difficult task. And so they bought this Dodge fire truck here for around $5,000 in the year 1920. And that's on Saucon Street in front of the firehouse. And before I go on with this, it seems rather coincidental. The Sawaico Fire Company and the Hellertown Company got started on the same thing. They both had serious fires. In Colesville, there was a fire, and they had about 3 houses burned down. And shortly after that, they had a meeting at the Grange Hall on this road here. And same thing with Hellertown. After 2 serious fires, they got the fire departments. This just shows the old fire truck from the they got the $5,000, and they have their new uniforms on this one here. Practice, they had practice once a week, and this is just the block up from the Reinhardt School. chief is over there with the white helmet on. Now they got 2 fire trucks. And there's a siren up on the top now this time. There was a siren like that up top of the Wolf School, and during the war years, when that went off, the whole building used to shake. It was very powerful. And Robert Hoppus Sr. Was talking to me one day, and he said back in the old days, a salesman came into Hellertown, and he was sitting there with a Hellertonian, and he heard the fire alarm go, and it was nothing more than a rim that was being hit by a sledgehammer. And the salesman said, "What's that?" And the guy said, "Well, that's a fire alarm." And the salesman said, "Well, I thought Hellertown was too green to burn." That's one of Hoppus' stories. Now later on, they bought a Chevy truck and turned it into a rescue and also an ambulance as well. Okay, Chief Zimfer. Chief Zimfer was fire chief for 49 years. He was 51 years the chief of police department. He was the street supervisor, and he was also in charge of the water department as well. So he wore many hats in his 50-plus years of service to the town. He was born in Baden, Germany, and he came to the U.S. when he was 9 years old with his parents. This is the chief's retirement. I think that's Reverend Stauffer. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And Herbert Grover Cleveland Hufford and Max Parsons from Ireland. The one by the chicken farm down there. Right. And that fellow there is Chief Schwader from the Dublin Fire Department. Now there's the rescue truck again. And there it is in red. And I don't know if everybody in town called it that, but we used to call it the agony wagon. When we hear it going up the street with the sirens going. And then after the agony wagon, well, you got to ride in a Cadillac, which was a big change from the Chevy pickup truck, a pedal bottom truck. We're very lucky to have a good fire department and a good ambulance corps here in Hellertown.
Is that Big Bertha in the back?
Let me go back. You mean that one back in there?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's Big Bertha or not. It looks a little like her. Did Big Bertha have a ladder in the back like that?
It had a place there to turn the wheels, though. That's not Bertha.
I know Big Bertha couldn't get around some of the corners. And it always broke down when they went to a 4 county fireman's. They got rid of that. It was built by Hall out in Hamburg. Big Bertha.
Back wheels turn.
This is the fire that was at Charlie's place. Used to be Fox Hotel at one time. And I think if I recall correctly, there was a fatality there with that fire.
There was 2.
2 fatalities?
Yeah.
Were there? Okay, thank you. And Buddy Foster made coffee. Right, Buddy?
We did over at the drugstore, yeah.
Yep, he made.
But we lost electricity then too, because the whole area was blacked out there. Some people lugged it down from a couple blocks up the street to hot water and we got
Okay, so you helped out. That was important. Right. This was when some guy tried to burn Hellertown down. They had a fire down at the mall. And that's the fire chief from Steel City. And that's one of the Hellertown boys. I don't recall who put his name on. Anybody recognize it? That was the inside of the 5 and 10. That was used to be down at the mall. Right. Burned out in this. And there's 4 of the firemen resting. I think that's Roger Schaefer's trying to fire recall. Right? I think that's a guy. This fellow I don't know. Anybody know? And this fellow I don't know either. here's the mall with fire store. I just threw this in last night as another slide. Buffalo Steel main office, only 4 stories high. And I think that's around 1913 when this postcard was made. Don't hold me to that date, but I think that's when it was. Trolley Cars, 1897 was when the first car came in it, and the last car left in 1953. Now that's a map of the Lehigh Valley Transit Company. And this little spur right there is the Hellertown Spur. And this one was from the Liberty Bell before it down to Philadelphia. And you can see it went to various...
If I could just interject a moment, the trolley line literally ran right in front of this building down the old Philadelphia Pike.
Put it down on the floor. Get out of here. Put it on here. Right. I hope it's not here.
Backup, right?
I don't know if the back came out or not. Yep. He's got one. Right, good. Thanks for bringing that along. Right, lots of white. Oh, huh? Yeah, the red ones are one. Okay. Yeah, there we go. You can see it went up to Slatington, up in there, and it went up into the little water gap. You had all these spots. So they had a lot of track on the eastern. There you can see North Wales, which is down in the middle of Philadelphia. This was a sketch rather than a photograph of the first car that came into Hellertown in 1896 or so. So it's the South Bethel in Hellertown there. 97 was. Now this is the actual photograph of Hellertown at the south approach. And as the cow catch right there, the conductor's over here, and the operator is in here. You got on sideways. You stepped on the stepping board there, and you slid into your seat, and then the conductor came back and he got your nickel. There used to be an old saying back in the old days that if you came into a town and you saw the best house in town, it was probably the house of the conductor on the trolley system, because all the nickels didn't go in the cash register. This is just another one of the cars. I have a couple of cars here to show you the different styles that they had. The building in the back there is Butch Rader's grocery store, and that was Brown Electric many years ago. And on the side door, went in on the side, and came out on the side. And another one. Down in front of the town hall. And what else? Now, how many trolley cars you see in that picture? How many?
3.
Huh? No, not 3.
2.
Not just one either.
2.
2, right. That's the Liberty Bell over there. I happened to live a block and a half away there, and I was down on the corner there with a tractor trailer bought that Liberty Bell down there for Andy's Diner. And then it became Mom's Diner. And then after Mom's Diner, there was a typewriter man in there who sold and also procured typewriters. Pardon? Amos? I don't know what his name is. Andy Comar later on went down to south of the border. He ever gone down to Florida by car. And he had some kind of a business down there. I'm glad I got this picture because you don't see that anymore. Right? That was taken down. So that's a good picture there. Inside of the trolleys, remember all the advertisements up along the wall all the time, here like that? You know, we used to go when we were kids. I shouldn't be telling all these stories. I know. But where the conductor was, there was a button up in there that let the sand out. Or when the tracks got iced up or they got slippery in some way, and then the traction pipe letting out the sand. And when I and a bunch of other guys used to get in the trolley to go to the back of the trolley car, you push the button and we have a whole trail of sand behind. And another thing I used to do with the trolley cars is I had a .22 rifle. And when I was done practicing shooting the targets, I'd take the shells home and put a barn burner match head on the inside and squeeze it shut with the pliers. And then we'd take those by the hundreds and put them on trolley car tracks. All these things would go off. And if we were lucky, we would find one that was from a deer rifle, and we'd stick a whole bunch of heads of the batches in there, and it really made a nice loud noise. But, you know, no, I should not be in jail.
And he was a school teacher.
I went to one of the transformation took place. The Vinci Trail Bridge was a toll bridge. When you walked across, you paid a penny, you threw it in the shed there. The same thing with the New Street Bridge too, you threw a penny in, and if you drove across, you paid a nickel. They were built by the transit company for their trolley car. There's the Hill Bridge. It was a rickety experience when you crossed that bridge in an automobile or a trolley. And the Vinci Trail Bridge, right? The Vinci Trail. The sand is on that big on that footbridge. Vinci Trail Bridge.
Dick,
Yes.
somewhere in the 1920s, there was a side track that came up somewhere around Water Street and went up to Lost Cave.
Yeah, I have the date for that on my paper here.
Oh, okay.
That's the trolley car. There was a switch in front of the American Legion where they could pass each other. They ran about every 20 minutes when I was in school. That's down the end of town. This is the last day, and the last run, the last trolley, October 26, 1952. What a bunch of these men did was they took their cars up to 3rd and New, and they parked them there, and they all went home in one car. And then the last car out of Hellertown, they all got on that, and when they were done there, they took the cars back to Hellertown. This is Herbert Grover Cleveland Hufford. That's the Burgess, Fritchman, I think his name was. Lawyer Abel. Teddy Bernhardt back there. Mrs. Solomon. Vince Coughlin. Breezy Ward. And this fella, I've seen, it's Cal Unanx, I think, if I recall right there. So they rode the last, and I was told that Herbert Grover Cleveland Hufford, his mother took him for a ride on the first trolley car, and now there he is on the very last trolley car. That one came from Hellertown to Bethlehem, and that one came up from Allentown through Salisbury. Now here they're getting ready to scrap the cars. This is around 1953. And what they've done is they've cut a hole in the iron grating. This is Daly Avenue. They cut a hole in the fence there, and they put a track into the Bethlehem Steel Company. The width of the trucks on the trolley car are the same width as the railroad tracks. And there you see a Liberty Bell coming in. Those are the trolley car tracks there, and these are the ones leading into the Bethlehem Steel. You can see how they put the gate in, and there's the rest of the wrought iron fence. These are Bethlehem steel photographs which I managed to get. There you see a whole bunch of Liberty Bells lined up along Daly Avenue. Bethlehem Steel bought 141 trolley cars and maintenance cars that were run into the Bethlehem Steel for scrap. 141. And there you see what happened to them. This is the scrap yard, scrap preparation yard of Bethlehem Steel. The monkeys were all up in the air. These are called the monkeys. And that was on the wire overhead. We used to have a lot of fun pulling the monkey. The monkey the rope went down to that part right from there, and they kept the one pole down on while the other one was up. And we used to run out and we used to give the rope a yank, and the monkey went up into the air, the trolley car got black and it stopped. And one night we had two guys behind one bush, and we had two guys in the next block, and we had two guys in the third block. And so 3 times the trolley car stopped, and the conductor had to get out and put the monkey back up on the wire. And I became a school teacher.
Did you guys ever have any chores to do?
Well, you weren't too busy on the farm. You were down there getting your hair cut too.
No, I didn't go to
Yeah, and like Lenny said, around 1898, they built a spur out to Lost Cave. And that only lasted for about a year or two. It didn't go over. And in 1902, the borough made them remove the tracks. I was told a few years ago they were doing some work in front of the firehouse, and they came across a piece of track from that spur. This is a tintype, and I can't remember his name. No, not that one. No. This chap was from North Southampton. I can't think. Oh, Weaver was his last name. And he was injured in the Battle of Gettysburg. And about a week and a half later, he died in the hospital with his wounds out of Gettysburg. And he's buried back at the North Southampton Cemetery. His father went out to see him while he was in the hospital. I can't think of his first name. These are the sons of Union veterans. And they were always in the parades along with the American Legion. The Werkheimer family was very active. Pardon?
I almost all of them, our family was them.
Right. The Werkheimers were very active in that.
Yeah, the work Kaisers and the Cups.
The Werkheimers and the Cooks. Right. This is Edward H. Ackerman, who the post is named after. Corporal, Battery B, Field Artillery. Died of wounds October the 8th, 1918. He was a month and 3 days away from the armistice when he got killed. He was on the steps either of his barracks or the mess hall, and he was eating, and the Germans lobbed an artillery shell in there, and he was killed by the shrapnel. This is his funeral out at the Union Cemetery. And you can see all the World War I veterans all lined up here. And he paced on with the casket on the top. Here are the veterans again from World War I are marching out toward the cemetery. You know by the direction of the way to the house. Falmouth Memorial Day. We had a welcome home celebration by the citizens of Hellertown and Lower Saukkoon, August 30th, 1919, held at the athletic field in Hellertown. When they had this welcome home celebration, they planted 5 trees out in what is now Divvy Park. And they were 5 trees in honor of the 5 men from Hellertown and Lower Saukkoon who were killed in World War I. There were 2 others that didn't get it back home either. The one died from drowning, and the other one died from disease. So there were 7 men who left here and never got back. This is a picture on that Northern Home celebration. And on the end is a Civil War veteran, and on the other end, just half of them, is another Civil War veteran. This is the Betsy Ross Club. The Betsy Ross Club was a group of Hellertown ladies who were in World War I. They did scarves and stockings, and gloves, things of that nature for the men overseas. And then what they're doing here is they're dedicating plaque to those 7 men with a water fountain there, cold water. And this is the corner of Chestnut and Main Street. The American Legion building is not built. So this picture would have been taken between 1920, I would say, and 1925, somewhere in that period. And you can see how they have their rifles with the helmets stacked up nicely. And there was always good cold water there, always good. And also, I was thinking last night, when I was a kid, in the pavement, either done by the Betsy Ross Club or by the American Legion Women's School, in the pavement there were little stars, copper or brass, about maybe 10 inches or so high, and underneath a star was a battle in World War I. And that's how I got to know that Baylor Wood and the Moose Argonne were 2 of the battles of those events on front. This is Stroll, whose father was killed in World War I, and that's Russ Ackerman. And the Ackerman that I showed you before, who was killed, and after the Legion's fame, was a nephew of that individual who was killed, and these are the ones who unveiled the monument. And here's another picture of it. You can see Chief Liver out there, seeing that everybody's safe. And in the background for the American Legions, what it was built. So you can see, first of all, that was there at the corner of Chestnut and Main. That's the building committee. And I don't have the names of them on card. Sally, there's her also. There they're starting to dig it up. And the way they dug it out was with a scoop and horses. They didn't have any steam shovels at that time, or backhoes and stuff like we have now today. Here it's starting to go up. See the steel work is up. See that memorial still there on that corner. And here it's getting a little bit bigger, a little bit better. Memorial still in the corner. And now you see the memorial is no longer in the corner, it's right in the center of where the American Legion is. Those are machine guns from World War I, French machine guns. And you can see a better view of them over here. When World War II started, they were taken down and put on a scrap pile. And notice how the word movies is up there. And John Kaufler from Allentown used to have his movies there. It's where I saw Gone with the Wind and King Kong. And the night I saw King Kong there, it took me about 30 seconds to get home. That's better than the machine guns that were strapped during World War II. This was down on the grass at Borough Hall. And it lists all the men who were in service during World War II. And later on, it got to be so that they had to put wings on the sides of this because so many men had gone. And behind each name, see that row there, the row there, they were different colors. If you were in the Navy, the color was blue. And when you were in the Army, the color was olive. I have no idea what the Marines were, but they had it all figured out. The Borough of Hellertown. That's a P-47D model at Farmington, Long Island, built by Republic Aviation. We had a bomb drive in Hellertown, and there were enough bombs sold to pay for that airplane. And the airplane was flown from Long Island down to Cross Keys to Florida. And there it was made into a trainer. Another seat was made in the back. And later on, it was used as a trainer at Andrews Air Force Base. And being a trainer, it got craned in and was wrecked, and then it was put a scrap pile. This P-47D is called the Razorback because of that razor there. Later on, the better model of the P-47 had a round canopy here and didn't have a Razorback rockets. So there were two styles of P-47s. This is the first ball field out at Denny Park. The grandstand over here and the public stand over here. This is the public stand out of wood. Not a very good picture, but it shows us the grandstand. Baseball team was it 1900 something? No, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Yeah, these are real oldies. That's down where Dr. Philippek used to have his office in the back there. Is there a doctor in there now in that long building? This up in here would be the corner of Northampton Street and Easton Road. That was the baseball field in this particular, 1990s. Doolies. And that's Paul Cockwood right there, Moxie Eisenhart, Doc Eckert over here. That's Flookie the Nailman over here. And Sarah, you know this fellow over here? That's Charles Monk Fry over there at the end. Hellertown High School, 1925. Do I have a 1925 card here? It will be on the cards. Is it? You have it there? Is that 25? Huh? Okay. Joe Belch, sitting down, and Oscar Panic. Second row, Miles Dobbins, Robert Gruber, Carl Fluke, Kenneth Tinnick, Harold Fitchman. In the back row, Mark Grubb, Orville Grubb, Mr. Hoppus, William Rogers, and Albert Stern. Hellertown High School, I don't think I have a card for that, do I? Okay. That's a Moran there, I remember that. That's a Kugler down there. That's my Uncle Frank can in the center there. I think that's a Brown down there, not quite sure. That might be Paul. Here's a soccer club. Just I think I had down soccer team. Right. In the first row, Richmond. No, this is not the right. Oh yeah, John Wagner. Ida Shaw would be this one right in here. And then Monk Fry, Charles Fry, Joe Balicki, this tall chap in here, and Joe Kresge and Willard Edelman in the first row. In the second row, Wes Ackerman, Walter Wimmer, Frank Cantor, Adolph Klinger, Robert Barnett, Steve Matchkow, Robert Hoppus. In the third row, Robert Hoppus and Richie Weaver and Charles Revere.
Can you imagine that Monk Fry, that little guy that's standing there in the middle, was once the quarterback for Liberty High School?
He was a quarterback.
He was a quarterback at Liberty when he went to 12th grade, because Hellertown did not go to 12th grade.
That's
at
right.
that time. So
Hellertown.
he went to Liberty and was the quarterback, and the coach was so fond of him that he talked him into going to Moravian so that he could get his education and continue in football.
Right. Yeah, and I forgot to mention that when I had the schools, that you only went to 11th grade for a long time in Hellertown. And you had to go to 12th grade, you had to go to Liberty. Mother had to do that. Here's the soccer club. Front row, Danny Petrovich, who's on our police force for a while. George Kabak, Russ Lipton Lawler, and Steve Franco. The second row, Family Special, Russ Eckert, Butch Eckert, Al Momich, John Hulak, Joseph Kobler, Charles Bloss, and William Zabel, Bill Zabel. When Bill Zabel went to high school, he was engaged in a lot of activities. The kids used to call him Jack Armstrong. That's his nickname. The last row, Frank Dew, Vince McCoskey, Eugene Rodenbush, Frank Kirkhash, Al Hoppus, Richie Maurer, Floyd Bortz, Harry Cart, Benedict Stafiri, Robert Yaub, Charles Rodenbush, Joe Balicki, and Robert Hoppus. Those names should sound rather familiar to some of you here today. I'm going backwards, I'm sorry. This is the Hellertown Soccer Club. And it was fellows who played soccer in high school, and after they got out, they continued to play soccer. First row is Titus Shull, Russ Sawyer, Joe Kresge, Joe Balicki, Kenny Fulmer, Bud Fulmer, Mark Grubb. In the middle row, Johnny Lefko, Frank Stern, and Monk Fry. I have to laugh at Monk. He's standing up on the step behind because he was so short. And in the back row is Frank Kantor, Willard Edelman, Albert Stern, Merritt Sloyer, Russ Ackerman, Paul Brown, and Paul Fish. And those are names which many of you are familiar with. They played in the Lehigh Valley League as a soccer team. That's 30-31. These chaps here, this picture was taken in Reading. And they were playing for the championship of the Legion Juniors. And I'm looking at my card here. They were the runner-up Pennsylvania State Legion champions. They defeated Ford City in the afternoon, and they lost 3-2 in the 12th inning. You know the names? Paul Fish, Charlie Lefko, Francis Kudler, Rodney Johnson, Nick Kolinitz, Kermit Judd, Marty Zabo, Andy Komar, George Froziel, State Commander, Ben Giffen, another state officer, Steve Kantor, Richie Weaver, Mike Petrovich, Joe Zemeny, Linford Rumfield, John Karubik, Elmer Brown, Trudy Rodenbush, and Charles Dern, who was the Pope's athletic director. Is that it? Okay. And this is the Little League in Hellertown. The reason I took this, that's my brother. First baseman, Little David did at that time. No. Yep, that's it, folks.
Thank you everybody for coming.
Why are
Thank
you-
you for doing this.
Oh, you're quite along. I love
We
fun
really
tonight.
appreciate it. There's a lot of, yes, you guys had a good time reminiscing for those of you who were here.
Quite welcome.
What's
Quite
that?
welcome.
Battery. Oh, I plugged it in.
He didn't do any of that. He didn't do anything.